Hi everyone, I'm Sandra Ingerman and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau. And while this topic isn't a laughing matter, I just made it a little silly with myself and started out by laughing. And I think that's a great thing to do is to laugh.
Absolutely. I love the fact that you start your workshops off having everybody laugh. I think that's great.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing a behavioral health conference in April at UCLA. And the first thing we're having a thing on soul exhaustion in the workforce for CEOs and HR executives. And I've hired the laughing yogi to come to get everybody in the mood for the workshop. So we're going to start that out by laughing too.
Oh, how great. Yeah, that's really good. I try to start my workshops out with drumming and singing. Yeah, but yeah, it's important. So we do have a big topic today. Do you want to introduce it, Renee? Do you want me to start?
Well, no, I could start about it, and then you could say if that's what you were thinking too, because we're going to talk about shamanic illnesses and soul illnesses. Is that what we?
Yeah, somebody asked us to to talk about the topic of shaman illness, how shamans, shamans who are working, it is a very, it's part of the tradition to deal with illness before you work or if you're not working.
Now, so what I was a little confused about is like I know a lot of shamans who have gotten ill from absorbing energies and things like that in their work, or are we talking about the illnesses that we had to persevere through ourselves to be through our own initiation processes? So to me, it's like a two-way conversation about things you pick up or things that you have to, the initiation stages of your own illnesses that you have to overcome to be more present as a healer.
Yeah, they're both great topics. The listener who asked us to speak about the topic was talking about the illnesses that shamans have to go to in order to be initiated into their work. So we could talk a little bit about both. I can say something about that, and Renee, you can talk a little bit about the absorbing of negative energies because it's a really short conversation. There isn't much to is that shaman illness from a shamanic point of view, it's the spirits who are doing the work. And what people don't realize is that if the spirits see a particular gift in you and you're not, and this is for people who are serious on the path. I'm not talking about people who are saying, oh, I'm just going to explore the topic of shamanism. It seems like it would be good for my personal growth or helping me to heal my trauma or whatever. I'm talking about people who are devoting their lives to practicing shamanism, and every day, this is their life, this is their path. And so what happens is that the spirits oftentimes give a big illness that you have to get through to have the power to actually do your work, and that is called shaman illness. So, an extreme example, I've never seen anything like this in the Western world, but an extreme example of this, and in indigenous cultures, we see that they do go to more extremes in their shamanic practices, and there's a power. The power in that is amazing. So I studied the Uchi tradition for a little bit, and the Uchi people lived kind of on the border of Siberia, Japan. Um, and uh, they they specialize in soul retrieval, and so one of their shamans, who was called grandmother, who is no longer alive today, she got a shaman illness of schizophrenia that lasted for 18 years. She was kept safe in a hut. The whole entire community knew that this was her initiation to be their shaman. And the whole community knew this, so they really took care of her, make sure she didn't hurt herself, didn't get hurt. And 18 years later, she came out to be the most powerful shaman they've ever had in their community throughout their history. And I have another friend who was studying, really, really going very deep into a meditative tradition, but kept getting sick, and it's in his book. You can read about it. It's a fascinating story. John Lockley. It's just an amazing story of what he went through. He lived as a monk, but he was so ill. He just got sick all the time. And this went on for years. And finally, it's a long story. Read the book if you want to learn about it, because it's fascinating. He found out that his destiny was to be an African shaman. There's this Anglo who the spirits picked as an African shaman, and he went to Africa. He was recognized immediately. The shamans immediately recognized him, that this was his destiny, and trained him to be this amazing, amazing shaman. So it's just a story that's known in the shamanic literature. My original mentor in shamanism, every time he taught a workshop, he got sick the day before he taught. And that was just part of it. And that also would happen for me. Oftentimes with clients, I would get sick right before a client would come, and those would be my most powerful sessions. And so it's like there's something about the spirits pushing us, and they do it in a way where it creates some kind of illness that pushes us to follow our destiny. I had a student who was an amazing shaman. I think she's retired now, I'm not sure. But she lost her son, and that loss was her initiation. And the day she walked into my very first workshop, I said, this woman, I had no idea who she was. I said, this woman is a shaman. And I mentored her. I got her through all of my advanced courses because I could see this was her destiny. And she was the only person I let journey for me for years. That's how great she was. And so there's that sacrifice, there's some kind of illness or some kind of loss that pushes you. It actually pushes you into the destiny of whether you're a true shaman or whether shamanism is a path for you, a personal path for you. I hope that made some sense.
Yeah, for me, the experiences are different. I was thinking of like the people in the Quechua people in Peru. Their shamans are selected by a bolt of lightning, and if one of the elders that at the time told a story about how he didn't pick up the mesa, like, and how sick he got when he didn't pick up that mesa for, he almost died because he didn't pick up the call. And maybe because I'm just such an emotional train wreck, a lot of my experiences have been more about those types of things, like, like my father dying, like the day after a huge event. Or for me, so a lot of times if I'm going to be teaching, like if I'm going to be having, like the first time that I did the I Am Symposium in my yard in 2011, I got scammed, and I'm very practical and pragmatic, and I got scammed by these people. And so when I called one of my teachers at the time, she's there like, oh, you must going to be doing a real powerful ceremony, Renee, because the backlash for me usually is some kind of like a hit out of left field that I'm not expecting.
Right.
So I kind of always know now, okay, if I'm doing something, well, how's the quality of the hit? Oh, that must not going to be too powerful. I didn't get slapped hard enough.
Yeah.
It might be because I'm moving so fast. I don't know. Do you experience that too?
Oh, absolutely. This is going to sound strange to people because everybody knows me as the person who's always trying to be optimistic and think about the positive, think about the light. Don't feed what you don't want, feed what you do want. But I believe in Murphy's Law. I'm a big Murphy's Law person, really big Murphy's Law person. So before every workshop, 40 years, I think about everything that's going to go wrong. And then I already did it. I lived it out. I lived my nightmare. And then I got to the workshop and everything went right. There was only one time in 40 years, I swear, one time in 40 years, I did not get into, uh, I don't know what the right word is, but get into how awful this workshop's going to be, all the terrible things that are going to happen. I was like, I can't wait to get to this workshop. It's going to be great. Everything's gone without a hitch so far. It's just a long weekend. I'm going to love it. I'm going to have so much fun. And I did. I had a great time at the workshop, but I didn't realize that half the group went through a terrible trauma. I was at a retreat center slash hotel, and all these teenagers came in the middle of the night beer, with beer, and had this gigantic party, and nobody on the other, there were two parts of the property, and so half the group slept really well and half the group didn't. And so the part of the group that got affected by the party, they came in so angry to a Medicine for the Earth workshop the next morning. It was unbelievable. It was the only time I didn't think about all the bad things that were going to happen at the workshop. It was
Again, who
amazing.
could have, who could have even imagined that? And that's not to say that I didn't have that soul initiation, because one time, in fact, we were talking about this person earlier this morning, and one time I was at this workshop, and the teacher did these magic tricks where he used rum to blow fire.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that.
And it's a magic trick,
Right.
except that I got hit with a dart. And because sometimes when like a fire walk or you do these magic tricks and all of a sudden you get so enamored by the trick that the spirits can come in and go bang. So I got a dart in my neck, and it took me 3 years to heal the pinched nerve. And it didn't happen right then, but I knew it was connected later, because about a week later, I was having a massage, and she was a newer masseuse at the time. She said to me, "Oh, it's a little crunchy in here." And sure enough, whatever she touched with the crunch and whatever I knew that I got hit that night, it really literally I had to sleep up in a chair I mean, it was terrible. It was like I didn't think it was ever going to end. And finally I had to really look at deeply at where in my life I was not in integrity, where I was turning my head the wrong way, all of those things, to really get really clean and clear with myself so that that experience could move on.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
it was beastly.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons I'm so vocal, and I have been vocal forever
Not
about
you.
sick of hearing me talk about this. It's one of the reasons I believe that really advanced methods of healing and shamanism shouldn't be taught online, because
Mhm.
there's things that you can't teach online. You have to be in physical presence with, and your teacher has to be able to see what's happening to your energy to see if you're getting into trouble. And if you got 1,000 people in a group online, who's watching your energy?
Mhm.
I can, but I'm watching the energy of everybody in my group. And so I can see when a student is getting ready to take on an intrusion because they didn't power up and they just went in like this. um, um, there are things in shamanism of you really have to learn about how to protect your boundaries so that you don't take on the illnesses that are circulating around in a group or a client that you might be working on. There's a lot of work that we have to do so that we don't get shaman illness from the work that we do, instead of getting shaman illness because the spirits are pushing us to something greater.
Right. Or give it along to somebody else. One time I was doing a retrieval and and granted I was new at this. So, there was a lot of new learning experiences. So if you're new, really when you're practicing, know that you're new and you really have to respect that space. So, I was retrieving something and there was something on it that shouldn't have been there. It was a pair of spectacles. And I was so like enamored by the pair of spectacles that I didn't realize that was something that shouldn't have been brought back with the rest of the power animal that I was bringing back for someone. And so sure enough, the person was like choking from this power thing that I brought back for them. And then it turned out that then somebody retrieved it, was annoyed at me for bringing this back, and then threw it back at me, and then it was in my throat. Now, these were very difficult learning lessons, and I hope you never have a teacher who treats you that way. But it was like the next thing, I'm at the airport the next day choking, and I'm thinking like, what just happened? And I didn't, again, it was one of those things that I didn't find out till much later, that when I brought this back, this had this, and then it was tossed back at me, and boom, I had to deal with the repercussions. And again, it goes back to what you're saying, Sandra, about not powering up, walking in and we forget because we weren't raised in a village where we were taught to respect all of the power. And so when you get you plug in you plug into the volt of the magic, and you just really have to be fully in integrity or have a really good somebody to talk to and say, listen, this is going on. And because you can't always tell whether or not you're really right in alignment. Like when people say, oh, spirit told me this. It's like, well, which spirit?
Right.
Who are you talking to?
Right.
And so I think that then you get yourself into other messes, which then cause you additional illnesses that what Sandra just said, were not part of your shamanic initiation, but they're self-imposed.
Right. Yeah, I wrote about in Welcome Home I used to love all the people who came up to me at workshops and said, my power animal told me to eat chocolate chip cookies. And I said, spirits don't tell you what to eat. They tell you how to live your life, who told you? Was it you? Because if you want a chocolate chip cookie, go eat a chocolate chip cookie. Don't say that spirit told you, because that's a big thing now. I don't know if it still goes on now, but it was a big thing that went on in the 80s and the 90s. People hid behind spirit.
Right.
Spirit told me.
Spirit said.
They would never say, I believe. I want to say it was always spirit said, but we're getting off the point. Sorry about that.
We should have that conversation sometime.
I know. Sorry.
What spirit are you talking to?
Didn't mean to do that, but the point is that shamanism is a very powerful path, and there are a lot of forces that are involved in shamanism. There are forces that are going to push you into your destiny, and that doesn't always feel good while they're doing that, because you don't know what's happening.
Right.
Then there's the times when you're in a workshop and you didn't power up and you took on, it's classic in shamanic cultures. A shaman does a healing for a person, takes on the illness, and has to find another shaman to heal them because they took on an illness. And we just really teach really strong methods of protection so that you don't take on an illness, but that takes a lot of discipline. You have to focus, you have to concentrate, you have to take it seriously. And so it's common in workshops to see people take on an illness or get possessed. Or you can actually watch groups where people get possessed because nobody taught that the audience who's at the healing has to be protected, or the intrusion or the possessing spirit can jump into them. So there's a lot that can contribute to illness, but everything is around remembering that shamanism is a spirit-driven practice and that you shouldn't be doing anything without consulting your spirits first. And if you're doing big work, you have to be one with them. You need to merge with them and be their vessel so that you don't get into trouble because their energy is in your body protecting you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about one of the finest healers that I've known in my lifetime. And I'm talking about somebody who does very deeply spiritual, does a lot of, prayer and meditation. And somebody she loved had breast cancer. And so sure enough, because of that, she had that, that she had that affinity towards the person, and she did the healing and didn't protect herself enough and brought it onto herself. And the person actually who had died came back and said, why didn't you take better care of yourself when you were working on me?
Right.
Why did you let your heart get in the way of yourself as a healer? And I suspect that's one of those shamanic illnesses, right. But that, at a grander level, it can happen anytime when you're not paying attention. Right. And you just have to really be persistent with your practices. And one of the things she always taught is about that you should decharge, whatever you use for a decharge, for if you're doing an hour healing for 10 minutes with 10 minutes for every hour of healing you do, you should either stand barefoot and on the earth, wash your hands under running water, hold a black rock, go walk on the mountain. But that we just think, oh, that was nothing, I'll just move on with the day. And it is something. And again, it's our lack of respect for the power of the energy that gets us into those positions to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I bring up in all of my healing workshops. And one of the things I like to do, and it's just my personality, I'm not putting anybody else down. I like direct revelation. I like getting my own answers. I don't like people telling me what to do. I'm just so right. Shamanism has been the perfect path for me. And so my power animal came to me and he said, you have to do these practices after every one of your clients so that you don't get sick. And so I try to tell people, don't read books, don't listen to other people, go to your spirits. If you're doing shamanic healing work, then you're working with spirits, and they're your partners in everything. They're your partners in clearing, they're your partners in invoking them, they're your partners in everything. So if you want to know how to keep yourself healthy while you're doing shamanic work, you should be going to your helping spirits and asking them, number one, to look at you to see if you're using your energy incorrectly, and ask, as Renee just said, how do I decharge?
Mm-hmm. That's great. I think I'll do that, because this week I got reminded very much so, because I was taking a sabbatical, but you can't take a sabbatical from the winds.
Right. Yeah.
Like you keep thinking you want something, Renee, but when are you going to come out and call us into this new, you've moved and you haven't brought us in. You have, you left us up in Washington and now you're in Palm Springs. When are you going to call the winds? Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, so I had to go outside and, because I'm kind of the reluctant one here. I had to go outside and do it. And then I was like, oh, wow, everything changed.
Right. Yeah.
And sure enough, a friend of mine said to me, you're not feeling really grounded. I go, what do you mean I'm grounded? I'm grounded. And then it was like the next day I got this message.
Right. Yeah. That's great. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, so I think the point that we're trying to make is that if you're really called to this work by the spirits, not by yourself, uh, being a shaman is not a profession that you take. You're called to it in some particular way. I was called to it by being hit by lightning and many different events afterwards. And I've had a lot of sicknesses that have pushed me. And I do believe that I've been going through something now because I'm birthing a new body of work. And it's a difficult, it's a shaman illness.
Mhm.
And so there's that where the spirits are pushing you and they kind of keep pushing on you by giving you physical challenges that you have to work through until you finally get the message of what you're being pushed towards, which is your true destiny. And then there's those of us who being a shaman is not our destiny, but we love doing shamanic work and we want to see clients and we want to help others and we want to help our community. And that takes discipline. That takes discipline of understanding that every single act that you do in shamanism is a ceremony. And every ceremony has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we like to do the middles, but we don't do the beginning and the ends. Creating the sacred space, calling in the spirits, getting our ego out of the way, laughing, bringing in the goodness of life. This is work that we just let go of. We just dive in and say, yeah, lie down. I'll heal you now. I've watched people in workshops grab somebody and do an extraction on them in the middle of a break and throw it at the group. You can only imagine those are moments when you really see Sandra Ingerman in her.
In our
We won't go there, but it's like, what are you doing?
like really, it's like
But,
really.
but you see this all the time. It's a discipline. Otherwise, people start taking on. Otherwise, you're throwing darts at other people without realizing it. Shamanism is a discipline, and shaman illness is good. Shaman illness is either pushing you towards something, or it's showing you that you need more practice with the work that you are doing.
I think we've said a lot, and I think like if someone wanted to sit and unpack this, this is like some time to spend with this and really kind of look at like, well, did I have a shamanic illness, or which kind of shaman am I in here, or am I a practitioner, or am I called, and where have I, been out of step with my own work for all of that? Because when you just talked about the beginning, the middle, and the end, it's like, okay, now I see I called the winds in here, but did I go up there and close the spirit loop before I came down here? Now tonight I'm going to have to go back up there and close up the loop, and so it's just a matter. It's a lifestyle.
Right. It is. Shamanism is a way of life.
Hmm.
A way of life. Yeah.
So I think we've said a lot. So I hope you really enjoyed this, and I think we forgot to tell you to hit the subscribe button at the beginning. So we're going to tell you now, hit the subscribe, follow us, share us with your friends. And if you feel called, we're going into season 5. We don't say this much, but Sandra and I actually pay to do this podcast. We have a few people who send us, we're on a regular donation schedule, and they send $10 a month, $5 a month. You can set that up on our website and really support this information being out in the world in a way that's, only costs you a cup of coffee.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. And I hope that you walk a shamanic path and make it a way of life, because it's a path that brings in an amazing amount of joy. Renee and I have to talk about, these big issues that can come up because it's part of our work. But it is a path of power. It's a path of ecstasy. Shamanism is actually called a path of ecstasy. That's how it's written about in the anthropological literature. So I hope one day that you'll step on the path. And in the meantime, Renee and I will just keep talking about shamanism and the things that we love to talk about. And so subscribe to our show and we'll keep you interested for the rest of the season. And we send you blessings.
Thank you, everyone.